If there wasn't any doubt before that Somura was one of the most tragic characters in Kagurabachi, this chapter solidifies that entirely. Because not only do we get the saddest information when it comes to the ability of Suzaku, the revival and healing ability that is part of Tobimune, Somura's enchanted blade, but we also realize just how much Somura's PTSD, his guilt-ridden personality, has bled into his own enchanted blade's true realm entirely. Because we get the pure confirmation in this chapter here. Not only has it always been Somura's plan to kill and revive all of his enchanted blade allies to free them from their enchanted blade contracts, which is important because Somura wants to stop the malediction. If the malediction is going to happen again, the very fact that the Sword Saint and the Shinichi are alive, it is always a possibility that can occur. The only chance they ever had was minimizing the ability of it to happen, because with all of the blade wielders being tied to the Sword Saint, if the Sword Saint dies, they all die. And that is the sole reason the Shinichi and the Sword Saint were even kept alive in the first place. Somura having to constantly live with all of this guilt and bear this burden on himself. We saw how this affected him in his backstory with Iori, his daughter. How he wasn't even able to live with his wife and his daughter because he felt so guilty and had so much blood on his hands. He could not rise to the occasion and look past that PTSD to be there for his family. And in this instance, while Somura has always been someone that has cared for other people, we see this revealing itself in the Suzaku ability of Tobimune in general. Now that Somura has developed Suzaku further after the Seitei War, Suzaku was developed and grown and turned into a new ability entirely just for this one purpose of Somura being able to quote unquote kill all of his enchanted blade allies, free them from their contract with their swords, and that way when Somura kills the Sword Saint, he is the only one that needs to die. Hey guys, real quick, if you want to support the channel, make sure you go down to gamersubs.gg/noop and get 10% off your nootropics and energy supplement fix, and we'll get back to the video. The sad, honest truth of the matter is, no matter how much Tobimune has grown, Suzaku cannot share this immortality, this level of resurrection where a person dies and then heals them afterwards to himself. Because we get confirmation here using the example of Hatshaku and the seeds that he implants in others. Once the original spirit energy user dies, that sorcery ceases to exist. So if Somura ever once loses life, Suzaku cancels out, even if he leaves the flames inside of him afterwards. So while he's able to save people like Chihiro, while he's able to save people like Oruha, at the end of the day, after all of this, Somura is the only one that can't be healed. Somura is the only one that can't resurrect. So Somura knows this. And when he spoke to Oruha in that last clash, that last and final moment before he took Oruha's life, when Somura says nobody else has to join him, he's the only one that has to walk this dark path. It's not that he meant he's the only one that has to bear this evil, dark burden of killing everyone he knew and loved. He's the only one that has to die in this situation. I mean, besides the Sword Saint. Maybe he even frees the Sword Saint. Who knows what Somura plans to do with the Sword Saint, whether he's just going to kill him or free him from the Shinichi's contract. But Somura, with this revelation, is, again, the most tragic character in all of Kagurabachi. Because no matter how noble, how great and amazing Somura might be in the grand scheme of things for being willing to make executive decisions and take on all of these, burdens and guilt himself, similar to, the Shadow Kage, if you're familiar with Naruto. The sad part of the matter is Somura is doing what he has always done and is making decisions for other people, which is why Chihiro refuses to let Somura do what he needs to do. Somura even says this before he tries to quote unquote kill Chihiro again. He says, my goal is to stop the malediction. My goal is to stop the Sword Saint, and I'm willing to do anything that I can to make sure the malediction does not happen. If you feel the exact same way and you understand why I need to do this, just let me do this. You don't even have to participate. You can move on and I will do this. However, Chihiro refuses to let this happen, not because Somura is inherently evil or is he still views Somura as a traitor, but not only does he know Iori will be upset if her father walks this path and dies, but he refuses to let Somura make the sacrifice alone. As someone who is an avenger, as someone who has dedicated his life to getting revenge for the death of Kunashige, his father, he relates and understands more than anyone what it feels to have a burden placed on you that you feel like you cannot get rid of. Chihiro knows how Somura is feeling, but it's because Chihiro knows how Somura is feeling that he refuses to let Somura walk this path alone. They can find another way. It doesn't have to be black and white. This doesn't have to be the only path that can be walked. What if they work together and find another option to stop the malediction? And sure, Somura is resolved in the path that he's taking. Somura, as Chihiro mentions earlier, he's so determined that he's not going to listen to any reason. Chihiro tried to talk to Somura before. Chihiro was in a much more emotional state and was unable to make sense and reason in that point, but still, it's not going to take just a discussion to get Somura out of this path. Which is why Somura and Chihiro begin their battle in this chapter, Enten vs. Tobimune. And in one of the coolest, most aura quota filling moments of this chapter, we get to see just how far in advance Somura is in the EI White Purity style compared to Chihiro. Because sure, Chihiro has now mastered the swordsmanship and is able to use it on a better level than Hirohiko. But when it comes to a true master like Somura, before Chihiro is even able to gulp and swallow, Somura picks up on that subtle weakness, and just the force of Somura rushing forward is enough to carry all of the furniture, chairs, and everything up into the air, push all of Chihiro's body, hair, and just weight backwards before Somura fucking rips through the air, grabs into Chihiro, and just they clash blades. Somura is only fighting with the sheath, by the way, not even really using the blade of his sword at this point. And still, he like space rockets Chihiro out of the Bloodshot Hotel and into the sky as all of these black feathers trail behind Somura here. I don't know how this battle is going to go, to be completely honest with you. Chihiro is in no way, shape, or form able to handle someone like Somura. Somura doesn't intend to kill Chihiro, despite that he's telling Chihiro that, you know, I'm going to kill you the second time, you're done, even though we see his internal monologue where he's just hoping to just kill and revive Chihiro again. And we also do get a small little flashback of how Iruha has been following Somura as well, and not only idolizing Kunashige, but idolizing Somura to the point that he has tried to follow in Somura's footsteps as someone that has pursued Somura and pursued his level of power, following him down the EI White Purity style swordsmanship path. Iruha knows that, just like Chihiro does, he has to stop Somura from bearing this burden alone. And I don't know if the other Enchanted Blade wielders will feel the exact same way, but if Iruha is any showing of how the allies that have fought on the Seitei War are going to feel, if Iruha and Chihiro are more than willing to help Somura accomplish this goal, what are the other sword bearers going to feel, and how are they going to handle what happens with the Sword Saint? Listen, I'm loving Kagurabachi lately. This entire arc, or at least the second half of the Sword Bearer assassination arc, has been nothing but fun. The very fact that both sides of the story, both Chihiro's side and Hikori's side, have nothing but hype moments happening in them. Iruha fights in the Kamunabi headquarters as their secret weapon, while Chihiro does his best to try and convince Somura to walk a different path. Iori is still present in the Bloodshot Hotel, so maybe she'll factor into the fight in some way. Somura throwing the Masumi, the Kumayori, is interesting, trusting them with the Enchanted Blade instead of taking the Enchanted Blade himself. While it also shows that Somura is not an evil guy and does still, you know, have a bond with the Masumi despite betraying them, I'm wondering why he was willing to let them hold on to the Kumayori's blade and where the sheath was, even knowing that Hirohiko is still contracted with it. We know that Enchanted Blade wielders can sense and find where their enchanted blades are. Chihiro was able to use the little goldfish despite it being in the subspace, so that makes me feel like Hirohiko is broken now, but is gonna come back. And I can't wait to also cut back to the Kamunabi headquarters, because that we also got the slight information that if Hatshaku is killed, then all of his traders, his little seed traders and explosions in the Kamunabi headquarters are also, you know, gone. So they can't plant that seed imagery anymore. We'll have to see what comes next, guys. But all I know is I'm pumped to see what Hokuzono keeps cooking, and I will be here every single chapter every week talking about this series, so you can count on it. Subscribe to the second channel if you enjoy content like this. It helps the YouTube algorithm more than you know, and hit that like button if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.